Hi students! I hope you're having wonderful summers. I'm sure one of the highlights of it has been reading Crime and Punishment. Hopefully you have this version. It's fine if you don't though. This is the one I'll refer to when talking about the second essay question. I can't wait to see you in September. I hope these essays you write will be things that you're proud of. You might feel a little rusty on essay writing because perhaps you haven't written one since school ended. All right, so let's jump right into it. First of all, brushing up on grammar skills. I hope you enjoyed these selections, these quotes that I emailed you the other day. Well, let's jump right to it. So this first one, of course, is from Pulcheria Alexandrovna's letter. Raskolnikov's mother writes him a letter to inform him of Donya's betrothal to Luzhin. And I hope you got some enjoyment out of that letter. It's very much the things we love and are frustrated by in our parents and maybe mothers in particular. She's a very interesting, sometimes rather annoying, sometimes charming, sometimes infuriating character. Really, most of them are. All right, so this, the first sentence is from that letter. So hopefully you gave it a whirl and saw what you thought of the clauses and phrases in it. So here I have some separate ones underlined. So for some defects, prepositional phrase, of character, prepositional phrase. For some habits, prepositional. Even certain differences also goes with for even certain differences. So it's another object of the preposition. Of opinion, prepositional. Which indeed are inevitable is an adjective clause. Even in the happiest marriages, a prepositional phrase. Donya has said is the independent clause, the only one in this sentence. And then starting with the that, we have a series of noun clauses. Donya has said that she relies on herself. So that whole thing is acting like a noun, acting like the direct object there, what Donya has said. So we have one, that she relies on herself, a second noun clause, that there is nothing to be uneasy about, and a third one, that she is ready to put up with a great deal. And there's some other phrases in here as well, infinitive, prepositional. And then if only their future relationship can be an honorable and straightforward one, is an adverb clause. So in total, we have 1 independent and 5 independent clauses, so it is a complex sentence. The next 2 are easier. Raskolnikov did not sit down, but he felt unwilling to leave her and stood facing her in perplexity. This is independent. This is another independent, and this is a complex verb, so just 2 different independent clauses, one with a complex verb, and so that makes it compound. And this one, this is of course after he has found out that Alyona Ivanovna will be at home alone without her sister at a certain time after coming across the hucksters in the Haymarket, and he feels suddenly like he's tied to the murder. I said there wouldn't be many spoils, but clearly it's called Crime and Punishment. Obviously there's a crime. That part isn't really the suspenseful part. So he thought of nothing and was incapable of thinking. That's 1 independent clause. It's 2, it's a complex verb. He thought and was. And then another independent clause, but he felt suddenly in his whole being, and that he had no more freedom of thought, no will, is a noun clause. He felt that he had no more freedom of thought. It's also acting as a direct object. And that everything was suddenly and irrevocably decided, also a noun clause. Don't worry if you didn't get the noun clauses too well, because those are some of the hardest ones. So it's compound complex because it has multiple independent and at least 1, and in this case 2 dependent. All right, we'll review those things, but just wanted to remind you that you'll need to know them and they help us analyze sentences. So I hope you're having an interesting experience with the book. I hope you read the thing that the packet I sent you yesterday. It's long, but it's really helpful and informative. I think one of the most interesting things that I learned about it, one of the most interesting things for me, is that it was published as a serial, published in a literary magazine or a magazine. So it can really account for the structure of the chapters, the way they each chapter, if you pay attention to where chapters begin and end, which we wouldn't necessarily do for this book, but if you stop and think about it, each chapter is a sort of self-contained episode Raskolnikov reading the letter from his mother, Raskolnikov meeting Svidrigailov, Luzhin counting his money and trying to trick Sonia, or trying to frame Sonia, you know, whatever it is. And then it ends either with like a cliffhanger or with like a cliffhanger in the sense that like the next episode starts, we know what's going to come next, but we don't know exactly how it'll unfold yet. So that can give you some comfort in understanding the structure. So some reminders about, in general, about the essays. If you didn't take notes in the margins as you read, and you're halfway through or already done, going back and taking notes in view towards writing the essays would be a good idea. Taking notes in the margins as you reread for each particular question. Before you go back to reread sections, maybe narrow your answer to the question down a little bit. So for the first essay question, choose a character besides Raskolnikov and think about how he or she is indispensable to the plot, atmosphere, or themes of the novel. You probably would want to pick your character before you go back and reread sections. But once you have, you can flip through the book to find the parts where their name is mentioned. And of course, the Russian names are tricky. So with the character you pick, if they're a character that is sometimes referred to by last name and sometimes by the first and middle name, you'll need to figure that out, and that can help you in scanning through to find specific parts. Now this one's the most important probably. So decide generally how you'll answer. Skim, reread some parts of the book looking for more fodder evidence for drawing up your thesis and framing your essay. And once you've done that, the key to writing the thesis and focusing the analytical work of your essay is being specifically analytical. Just like come up with an idea, just grab it, make it really particular. General is not good for a thesis, for the most part. Have a new idea, as Raskolnikov would say. His new idea was to murder an old pawnbroker. Not such a good idea. You guys should probably have a better idea. For instance, impudent is a word that's used a few times. And that's a really interesting and particular word, and it really captures how Porfiry Petrovich is acting and always acts towards Raskolnikov. And that's actually right there in the text. So you can pull that word out, that you could use that word, his impudence. You could sort of splice out, break down his impudence in analyzing his approach to the debate with Raskolnikov in part 3, chapter 5. So if you wanted to call him nasty, okay, that's all right, but impudent is more specific. If you wanted to call Sonia or Donia or Razumihin kind-hearted, that's okay, but sacrificial and noble might be better for Donia, for instance, or maybe you could call Sonia that. I don't think I would call Razumihin noble. He's kind of like a puppy. If you consult outside sources, and of course I want you to read the packet I sent you, but stay away from Spark Notes, though it's just sad. If you do consult things and you directly use those ideas in your essay, make sure you cite them at the end, and make up your own things. Everything's been written on Crime and Punishment already, but for a reason, because it's an interesting book. Come up with your own ideas. Wasted all this time reading it. It's not wasted time. Might as well make it work for you. Okay, first question. How is a character, besides Raskolnikov, indispensable to the themes, plot, or atmosphere of the novel? So you have to pick your character, and you also have to pick whether you're going to be talking about themes, plot, or atmosphere. If you're talking about themes, then you choose which particular themes those are too, and how Svidrigailov or Luzhin or Sonia or Donia or Pulcheria Alexandrovna. Never had an essay on her. That would be interesting. You have to choose your themes and then work out how the character is absolutely essential to those themes. Or you choose the plot and you think about what the pivotal plot moments are. For example, this novel, without giving away the very ending, treats falling action really interestingly. You might not like the falling action and the resolution. People have interesting reactions to those. And then the atmosphere of the novel, that's a very interesting one. Do a dictionary search for a literary definition of atmosphere. There's a few different ways to define it, but it can be a really fun term to apply to a novel. So here's an example of a pretty good thesis from a student in past years. It's sort of a two-sentence thesis. Svidrigailov in Crime and Punishment exemplifies the conflict between morality and immorality because of his obvious lack of religion, erratic behavior, and obsession with power. I might add in there too, it's very subtle in there. You might not notice it, but he's directly, pretty unequivocally attracted to very young girls. Not like young, but like teenage young. I mean, none of it's good. It's put really subtly in there, but I guess not at the end as he's preparing to marry, I think, a 15-year-old girl. Yes. Svidrigailov's interactions with innocent and moral characters such as Donia and Sonia highlight his impurity and immorality because their communications are so horrifying for the women and so exciting for Svidrigailov. So it's a good thesis. There's a lot there. It's really specific. It's really ready to make an argument. Here's a listing out of the characters. I'm going to send this document to you guys along with the video. A listing out of characters that might be helpful to you. These are the most important ones. You should be able to remember who these are to be sure that you are remembering the book well. There's some unnamed characters who become, I love this one, the one who calls him murderer. That's a great part. And then breaking it down by situations, there's basically like sort of 4 or 5 groups. There's the Raskolnikov family, of which Razumihin kind of joins into, so we could put him in there. Well, not kind of, he does wind up joining in. And then there's the Marfa Petrovna sort of backstory, but then Svidrigailov and Donia obviously are still in our present story. There's the Razumihin group. Porfiry Petrovich is his uncle. Zosimov, the doctor, is his friend. The Marmeladovs, and then the group of legal men. Porfiry Petrovich and Zametov are the most important there. And then there's Lebeziatnikov, Luzhin's roommate. He's in there for like ideological reasons, to like put to illustrate some of the prevailing political views of the day. You pick a character and you pick one of those other 3 and you work out a specific and interesting thesis and pursue an argument and an essay about it. Make sure in all of your essays that you're using quotes. Lots of quotes. 6 quotes, 5 quotes, 3, more than 2. Second essay is pretty easy. I've put here the page numbers in this edition for where that debate takes place. It basically consists of them coming in, Porfiry presenting his position, and then Raskolnikov explaining and his theory on crime and Porfiry tormenting him. Here's a list of some of the, there's many, many more, but here are some of the interesting examples of how Porfiry toys with him. So that one, you're thinking about his motive and you're thinking about what language devices or literary devices he uses, what techniques he uses, in other words, to achieve his motive. Here's the thesis example. When Raskolnikov and Razumihin visit Petrovich's flat, Petrovich uses his evidence and knowledge as a power mechanism, approaching the situation with a sense of calm determination. So what this one is lacking is what his motive is, but she probably had that in another sentence. This one's pretty good. I would make it stronger in the uses evidence and knowledge part, but the power mechanism part is good. So look through those things. And then finally, the last essay is maybe the easiest to be analytical about. The nature and type of betrayal in Crime and Punishment. You have a lot of choices. You have to pick. Betrayal is sort of automatically analytical because you have to decide what is being betrayed, what the consequences of the betrayal are, what the process of the betrayal is, whether the betrayer is restored to fidelity and wholeness and redeemed at the end, wherever. So make a list of major characters and maybe what they might betray, multiple things. Raskolnikov, of course, is an obvious candidate, but many of the others do as well. And yeah. So we only have 20 seconds left before the video cuts off. The majority of the betrayal that is happening in the novel is occurring inside Raskolnikov's head. Not good enough. You need to say what the betrayal is. So this is an example of a thesis that is not yet specific, but needs to get specific. All right, I'll make another video for you guys next week. That'll be about nihilism, Christianity, and some other things. Hope you're having a great summer. Bye.